Ibn Hubayra, this man, he was the governor, he's trying to quell the rebellion against Bani Umayyad. And the way to do that is he brings in all these scholars, that includes Abu Hanifa, and now he wants to appoint Abu Hanifa as one of the Qadi al-Qudah. Basically appoint him as Chief Justice. Whatever he's going to say, Abu Hanifa stamps on it and it's all good. Abu Hanifa's answer is that I will not count the doors of the masajid. Forget about what he wants me to sign the orders for. I will not even do that for him. Forget about signing, asking the Muslims to go to kill other innocent Muslims. He will not allow to have blood on his hands. I think a lot of scholars today have left that struggle of Abu Hanifa. Especially in the time that we live in, with Gaza happening and so many other places, Muslims suffering. It's amazing how much, maybe by design, maybe by circumstance, maybe just because of fear, we don't mention so much of real life struggles of these scholars. Speaking the truth in the face of the tyrant is the best jihad. And Abu Hanifa chose this. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. The topic today, inshallah Rabbul Alameen, it's very interesting. I mean, in a sense that, a lot of times when we discuss ulama, especially in these days and these times that we are in, which, the reality of all types of scholars is coming up, right? Why did they really study knowledge for? What was and it's very clear. Some studied only for fame and money. Some wanted to become celebrities. And some are sincere, who are making sure that they're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They know what that means. And like the Shaykh, he read the ayah right before me, he mentioned, and reminded the people, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. The people who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most are the ulama. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah has a very interesting saying about this. He said, it's the people who have taqwa are the ones who have knowledge. The ones who actually have taqwa have knowledge. After all, the fruit of knowledge is taqwa, meaning fearing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when we study these scholars, I realized, subhanAllah, how much I didn't know about Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and how amazing this man was as a scholar, as someone who loved this ummah so much, someone who really loved justice, someone who was willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that haqq prevails, and including giving up his life. And we will see all of that. We will see all of that. We will see his time in jails. We will see his time in prisons in general, going in and out of prison constantly, being whipped, being sent out, where he has to seek political asylum within the Muslim lands, and all of this. Now, the other thing which I began to say, but I didn't finish, I guess, is the idea that a lot of the scholars today, when they're studying, or whenever we even learn about the scholars, we learn a lot more about theory. And we learn their usul, we learn their intellectual backgrounds, right? How they built that usul, the times that they were living in. And again, it's mostly about their usul, about their ijtihads, how, what made them do what they do, their books, their writings, all of their intellectual work. More than the struggle which their learning pushed them to do. Right? So they were practical people who were practically involved in the affairs of the ummah, who were taking stands in a way that actually made the ummah love them. I think one of the reasons why till today we mention Abu Hanifa and other scholars is because of their sacrifices for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, I'm focusing a lot more on his political life, just because I think we don't get to know his political life. As I said, we get to know so much other stuff about Abu Hanifa, but we don't realize the kind of real political struggle that these guys were involved in. And I really focus most of the talk on the political life of Abu Hanifa more than his, upbringing or his talents, his skills, him as a man, all of that. And I think hopefully the Sheikh after me will do, Sheikh Zahid will do some of it. I'm sure there's so much to talk about Abu Hanifa, and you can't cover all of this. And you're looking at decades of life. So what I'm going to do is let's start it, because there are some things that he says about knowledge, which I was thinking, should I discuss or not because of the timing. But one of the things that he says that, look, good works have to be based on good knowledge. Meaning, one of the things that he was very firm about was when it comes to aqeedah, his aqeedah was based on qat'i dalail. Qat'i dalail, and which means that he said deeds follow knowledge like members or organs of the body follow vision. He said deeds follow knowledge like members or organs of the body follow vision. If you can see what, you can use your other senses very well. And if you can see, then you can use your other senses very well. Same thing if you have knowledge, then you have light in this world. So he was very keen on making sure that he said, you make sure that your knowledge is firm, well-grounded, even if it's small. You may have, he said, some people, they may have a lot of works or a lot of deeds, but their knowledge is not well-grounded. So he used to be of those people, he used to say, make sure that your knowledge is well-grounded, even if you have a small amount of deeds. In the sense that, make sure that because they are correct, that they're based on what is, haqq, not just that you're doing things for the sake of doing. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of this plays out in his struggle or in his lifetime. Another thing that you can see that he's a very open-minded person, in a sense that as a scholar, he knew his human limitations. And he used to say, my opinion is correct, but it can be wrong. And the opinion of other is wrong, but it can be correct. And this is something that we know of ijtihad, because at the end of the day, ijtihad is based on, it is done on dhanni matters. And even if the person is done ijtihad, after that we can still figure that ijtihad will still be dhanni, it cannot be qat'i, meaning no one can claim that I'm 100% right when they do ijtihad. So with that, let's go to his political life. Now, a lot of what I got for his political life, I got it from a book. It's called Al-Manaqib. Al-Manaqib is a book that is written by Imam al-Makki. Imam al-Makki, he's done an amazing job. And if you get a chance to get this book and read it, you will really realize. There's another one also in Urdu. It's called Abu Hanifa ki Siyasi Zindagi, and the political life of Abu Hanifa. That's also available that you can read. And I'm pushing, especially those brothers and sisters who are Ahnaf or Hanafi school, they should actually read these books, because I think a lot of the Hanafi scholars today have left that struggle of Abu Hanifa. They really have left the struggle of Abu Hanifa. I really believe many of them don't even represent Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, to be honest. Especially in the time that we live in, this situation that we are living in with Gaza happening and so many other places, Muslims suffering. There is no way, knowing what I know about Abu Hanifa and how much more I love this man, rahmatullah alayhi wallah. And it's amazing that how much, maybe by design, maybe by circumstance, maybe just because of fear, that we don't mention so much of real life struggles of these scholars. But I think when you do that, you really miss out on the reality of who these people were. Really, you won't really appreciate the reality of these scholars until you actually realize how much fear of Allah they had, because the more learned they were, the more they not only took themselves accountable, but they made sure that because they represent the Muslims, that their rights are not taken. That nobody can just come and you cannot just oppress the Muslims and there will be no voice standing up for them. So again, as I said, Al-Imam al-Makki in his book Al-Manaqib, he writes about the life of Abu Hanifa. So he says, majority of the political opinions of Abu Hanifa, Imam Abu Hanifa, tended to support Ahlul Bayt, especially the ones who were with Ali radiallahu anhu and Fatima radiallahu anha, and their descendants also. And you'll realize why that is, because this was the time, you're looking at very tumultuous times, you're looking at times where Bani Umayyah had come in power, and Karbala and many of these things were very still fresh in the minds of the Muslims. Of course, we all know what happened with Yazid and all of that. So, and then of course Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi time and all of that. So Abu Hanifa is living through a lot of times that made him who he is, and I'll go into that. So just so that you know that he did support a lot of he had a lot of support for Ahlul Bayt, and he did everything possible to support them in many ways. He lived through Bani Umayyah times and Abbasid times. He lived through 52 years during Bani Umayyah and 18 years under the Abbasid. Again, 52 years during the Umayyad times and 18 years under the Abbasid times. And he died when he was 70, and 69 or 70 years old, rahimahullah. Many revolutions were taking place against Bani Umayyah, trying to reclaim the Khilafah from the Ummayyad back to Ahlul Bayt. This is another thing, of course, these are the times that he's living in. So there's constant rebellion that is taking place against Bani Umayyah. Actually, to be honest, most of Bani Umayyah, it was not quiet time. Nobody just allowed Bani Umayyah to kind of just let go of, if the people thought that they had committed crimes, they were people who were making sure that they are taken accountable. And you will see that this idea that we have today, that we don't take our rulers accountable, we're just supposed to look the other way, we're supposed to give the other cheek, we're supposed to just go to jail just because the hakim is putting you into jail. The idea that all of this comes out in the fiqh of Abu Hanifa. This is amazing fiqh, really. It is an amazing fiqh, to be honest. And maybe because of my own nature, I am loving more, just because who Abu Hanifa, the kind of man he is. Abu Hanifa, although he never participated in actual battles, in actual fighting against either Bani Umayyah or Bani Abbas or Abbasid, but he constantly gave money, encouraged dissent and rebellion by supporting through words and money. And we will see that also, inshallah, as we go. So I'm repeating again, it was very clear that he was very clearly supporting the rebellions against Bani Umayyah. And of course, he also supports the rebellions against Abbasid. So it's not just that he was, he loved Bani Umayyah or Bani Abbas, and then he just didn't like Bani Umayyah. No, he didn't like oppression, period. He did not like oppression. He was against people taking power just because it was family. He was very clear about what it means to take bay'ah and what are the conditions of bay'ah. And we see that in his life. So let's go on. Now, Al-Manaqib, it mentions, it's interesting. He seems to be very, also, as I said, supporter of Ali radiallahu anhu. He was very firmly supporter of Ali radiallahu anhu's khilafah after Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was his firm belief that it should have been Ali radiallahu anhu after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Although later on we also see in another book, it's called Al-Intiqa of Ibn Abdul Barr, And in this book, he says that yes, although he had this belief that it should have been Ali radiallahu anhu, he but he still gave the due respect to Abu Bakr Siddiq, of course, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, Uthman radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu, and he never advanced one over the other in that way. But he of course, he had his opinion, and he was, at the end of the day, he was Abu Hanifa, and he used to say, every man, just like every man have the right to have an opinion, and I have mine, but they are based on knowledge. So that was one of those things. But his students do have some opinions regarding Ali over Uthman, or sometimes they said he never put them in that kind of, who should come after who. But when it comes to firmly believing that Ali should have been the Khalifa, he seemed to have that opinion. Now, he is from Kufa, born and raised. Of course, as I said, hopefully, Sheikh Zahid will talk about his background a bit more than I did. He's Persian, but now he's living in, his parents, at least his forefathers are. Now he's from Kufa, and you all know Kufa means, what Kufa is about, right? So much had happened in Kufa. Ali radiallahu anhu had moved his Khilafah to Kufa. He was a political center of the Muslims for the longest time. And it is a place of all kinds of thinking is taking place. Usually when there is serious thinking is taking place, there's also a lot of argumentation, thinking. Sometimes it leads to revolutions. And these are signs of alive people. When people are deaf, dumb, and blind, that's where you find where nothing is happening. Right? Like, this is one of the, and you get, that's where the frustrations come in that why that there's so much oppression, and it's so clear that there's so much oppression that people are not moving. Because those who have eyes can see oppression and say, this is wrong. So Kufa was a place like this, right? So now, but again, just before I go to Kufa, he never allowed the cursing of the Sahaba. Just because I mentioned Ali over, that doesn't mean that he supported all the Shia or things like this. Don't get that in your mind. But he never did he allow the cursing of the Sahaba ever. When he met Ata ibn Rabah in Mecca, he asked him, Kufa, and Ata asked him, where are you from? He said, Kufa. He said, are you from the city that divided the religion into groups? And then he said, what groups are you from? Or what group are you from? He said, I am from the group that does not curse the Salaf. And you can see that the man, and he knows Abu Hanifa was also very shrewd in a very smart way. He had his knowledge. He was very firm in how he knew, and something that, inshallah, we all wish we could have. Even though very sincere, sometimes, out of sincerity, we put our guard down and then we suffer because we think the people in front of you are also as sincere as you are maybe. And then you realize that no, people can be dirty. And so he said, that does not, I am from the group that does not curse the Salaf. Now, one of the great Imams of al-Bayt, and this is important, again it's mentioned in Manaqib, his encounter with Muhammad al-Baqarah. As we know, Muhammad al-Baqarah, he is the son of Zain al-Abidin, son of al-Hussein, son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. This encounter is reported by Imam Abu Hanifa himself. And he says, I went to Medina where he hired. Now at this time, Abu Hanifa was young as a student of knowledge. He was going to different teachers, still learning. So now he is in Medina, and Muhammad al-Baqir, he lived in Medina. So he said, I went to Medina where he lived, Muhammad al-Baqir. I came to Abu Ja'far, Muhammad ibn Ali, whose name is Muhammad al-Baqir. He said, "Oh, Akhul Iraq, don't sit here." When he saw him, he was about to sit. So Imam Baqir told them, "Don't sit here." So, and then I sat anyway, and I said to him, "May Allah rectify your ways." Then he asked him, "What do you say about Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu?" He said, "May Allah have mercy on them, especially since the way they were, especially the way they were treated in Kufa." Again, as I said, he was coming from Kufa. And Kufa was a place where for the longest time Ali radiallahu anhu was cursed on the mimbar until Umar ibn Abdul Aziz came and he started this practice. So again, no matter what happened, not Kufa, but that area during Banu Umayyad times, you won't be surprised to see that Ali radiallahu anhu was cursed in the manabir. And then later on, as I said, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who was from Banu Umayyad, came and he took out that practice, removed that practice. But he says, he said to, may Allah have mercy on them, on Abu Bakr and Umar. This is the answer of al-Baqarah, Muhammad al-Baqarah. They say in Iraq, you distance yourself from Abu Bakr and Umar. So he said, Ma'adallah, this is a lie against me. But the Lord of the Kaaba, this is, of course, Muhammad al-Baqir teaching Abu Hanifa. He said, and at that time, Imam Baqir was already teaching. He was Imam in Medina. So Muhammad al-Baqir also says, he says, Kulthum, who was the daughter of Ali radiallahu and Fatima radiallahu anhu, gave their daughter to Umar radiallahu anhu in marriage. Who is the grandmother? The grandmother is Khadija radiallahu anhu, and the grandfather is Rasulullah. Imagine that. Grandfather is Rasulullah and grandmother is Khadija radiallahu anha. And the brothers are Hassan and Hussein. And the father is Ali radiallahu anhu, with honor and advance in Islam. This is the woman Ali radiallahu anhu gave to Umar in marriage. If Umar ibn Khattab was not worthy of her, this great honor Ali radiallahu anhu never would have given to Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. And this is one of the discussions that takes place. By the way, they said that Abu Hanifa and Muhammad al-Baqir were in contact, contacting each other through letters. Whenever he would travel to Mecca, he would go, and many times whenever he's in Hijaz, he would make sure to go and see Muhammad al-Baqir. So then Abu Hanifa, he said to him, why don't you just write a letter and a statement, something that you can send it to Kufa, to the people who support you, who at least they say they support you, to that they stop the kind of things that they are saying about Ali radiallahu anhu, or what they say about Umar ibn Khattab and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Then he answered them, he said, this is, Abu Hanifa was clear, and then he said, even if I do this, they will not listen. And he knew that they will not listen to what advice or what he has to say. Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu, he used to say, it was clear that Ali radiallahu anhu was on the right side in every battle and every conflict. He would say, whoever fought Ali radiallahu anhu, except that Ali radiallahu anhu was closest to the truth in this, against his enemy. Now, so that means, again, one of his teachers is, keep in mind, so one of his teachers is Muhammad al-Baqir also, just as Jafar radiallahu anhu, and we will see that also. So he supported the rebellion both against Bani Umayyah and Abbas. So he supported Ibn Zayd ibn Ali when he rebelled. He said, if you don't think that people would let him down, he said about, even though Zayd radiallahu anhu, or yes, Zayd rahimahullah, he was killed, but he said about him, he said that if he knew, or if he didn't think that the people would let him down just like they let his father down, I would have also picked up my sword. And this is one of the very few times Abu Hanifa actually wanted to do actual fighting against, in this case, the Abbasid. Of course, this was same thing during Abbasid, supported the rebellion of Nafs al-Zakiyah, which is again very well known, and his brother Ibrahim radiallahu anh, and he would also take knowledge both from al-Bayt, and he considered both Jafar al-Sadiq and Muhammad al-Baqir as imams, meaning to take knowledge from. And this is of course a bit different than what we see from the Shia side, because they will only take knowledge from the imams that are coming only from Ahlul Bayt side, and they say, they will not take knowledge from any other scholar. And of course, this is not what Abu Hanifa does. He's taking knowledge from everywhere. And so, the famous book Al-Athar, which we know, book of Al-Athar, which is written by Abu Yusuf, is a student of Abu Hanifa. He narrates from Muhammad al-Baqir that the Prophet ﷺ he did Qiyamul Layl with 8 rak'ah, witr with 3 rak'ah, then prayed Fajr. And this is hadith munqati. And so we know what that type of hadith is in some of the hadith classes, or some, we discussed this. This actually shows how much trust Abu Hanifa actually had in him. This is the type of hadith where if it is not directly the person who mentions the hadith, it ends at that person rather than going up to the Sahabi. But even though the people take the hadith from him, having the trust that he will not lie, number one, and knowing the amount of knowledge that he had, that sometimes, the narrator, because the amount of people that he had met, he wouldn't even mention them. But people, because of their trust, being a thiqah, they will not even ask. And that's the type of trust that Abu Hanifa had in Muhammad al-Baqarah. Now, of course, he is living in very tumultuous times, because now it's one thing, imagine 54 to 52 years during the Banu Umayyah, and now he's also living during the time where Banu Umayyah are now exchanging, meaning now Bani Abbas, Abbasid are coming to town. So he is literally living now at a time also where there is exchange of power is taking place. And you can imagine the amount of, how much rebellions are taking place at the time. Because remember, at the time, at one point, Bani Abbas had already taken over Persia and had taken over Khurasan, and so they were about to enter Iraq. So there is now a lot going on at that time, and Abu Hanifa is a scholar there at the time. Just to give you an idea here, Abu Hanifa was born 80th year of Hijrah in the Khilafah of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan to Bani Umayyah, and died under the Khilafah of Mansur of Abbasid. And now the thing also just to mention is that when Abu Hanifa starts thinking about a lot of these things that are happening around him, and of course now he's older, 45, 46, 50 is going on, but when he really opens his eyes and he starts looking to what's happening in the world, who's the governor at the time in Iraq? Imagine Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. So you can imagine, anyone who knows who that is, you can imagine the kind of opinions Abu Hanifa has regarding Bani Umayyah, because of how harsh Hajjaj was. Like killing scholars, Sayyid bin Musayyib was killed by him, and many others. He killed thousands of people. Now, politically, Abu Hanifa found that the Khilafah had it became almost inheritance kind of thing, exchanging hands from father to son, or sometimes brother to brother. And also many bells were fresh in the minds of people. Now this explains the kind of stance that he's taking. Now let me go to some of the stands. I guess maybe make it faster here. Abu Hanifa, when he started his, as I said, he was 15 years old. He is under Hajjaj, so keep that in mind. When Zayd, son of Zayn al-Abidin, rebelled and announced his rebellion, then followed by rebellion of Yahya, then his grandson Abdullah. So this entire lineage, the whole lineage here rebels against the house of Umayyah. The whole, you're talking about from Yahya, from Zayn al-Abidin, right? Zayn, son of Zayn al-Abidin, then his son Yahya, then his son Abdullah. The whole lineage is fighting the Bani Umayyah. And at that time, Abu Hanifa is 41 years old. So he's already a scholar, and now he's in teaching. He's teaching. He's not just anybody. He's actually teaching, and he's a scholar. And he's he knows his scholarship. He knows his stuff. To the point he says a statement. Now, some of you may agree or disagree, but again, this is his opinion. He says that this rebellion of Zayd is like the battle of Badr. How the Prophet ﷺ fought against the Quraysh, he looks at it as the same way, the rebellion that Zayd is doing against Bani Umayyah. Now, not that he called them kuffar, but he does give this example that he considered it that big, to the point that people ask him, then if you thought that this was this big, that why didn't you support Zayd actually fighting with him? He says that because he, being the businessman, there's a lot of money that he was handling. And he said that even though I asked Ibn Abi Layla, which is another scholar at the time, he had asked him that, look, can you take over this amana, all of this money, all of these things? If you can take over that amana, he wanted to actually pick up the sword and fight against Bani Umayya Abbasid at that time. But he just didn't, because he said, I didn't know who to give this money to. And Ibn Abi Layla, he rejected. He said, I'm not going to do this. So because of that, he says that even though I couldn't go, he gave them 10,000 dirham, and then he apologized. And of course, remember the statement that he had made that Zayd will be slaughtered. And not only Zayd was slaughtered, Zayd radiallahu anh, Yahya, and both were slaughtered in this battle. Abu Hanifa's, it's amazing as a school, as his opinion. He supported rebellion and revolution against Umayyah was allowed, he said. Rebellion against Umayyah was allowed. It's a ruling in Hanafi school. He was and is very clear in his school. If you think that government is deviating from the Quran and the Sunnah, then rebellion is allowed. He did not see anything wrong with it at all. He did not see anything wrong with it at all. And so now, and now I'm summarizing, please forgive me because of time. So Ibn Hubayra, this is another commander that was under the Abbasid Khalifa. He comes to Abu Hanifa and he tells him, he basically says that, look, he was trying to quell, this man, he was the governor, he's trying to quell the rebellion against the Bani Umayyah. So he comes to Abu Hanifa basically telling him that, look, I need a seal, somebody who can basically legitimize whatever I'm going to say, because Bani Abbas are very close, they're coming in. Basically, the Umayyah time is finishing up, Abbasid are coming. So this governor of the time in Iraq, he tells him that, look, I need somebody who can basically legitimize what I have to say. And the way to do that is he brings in all these scholars. That includes Abu Hanifa. And now he wants to appoint Abu Hanifa as one of the Qadi al-Quda. Yani basically the seal of the Imara. Whatever he's going to say, Abu Hanifa can basically, when he stamps on it, and it's all good. Basically appoint him as Chief Justice. Now, Abu Hanifa's answer is that I will not count the doors of the masajid. Forget about what he wants me to sign the orders for. If he orders me to even count the doors of the masajid, and there are different statements to this, but one of the, basically, I will not even do that for him. Forget about signing, asking the Muslims to go and fight other Muslims or to kill other innocent Muslims. That's not even imagined. So now because of that, and I will not allow my hands, he will not allow to have blood on his hands. Now, he does send the governor at the time, Ibn Shubruma is another scholar at the time, and as I said, Ibn Abi Layla, they sent him to go and say, look, just tell him to submit, just let it go, kind of accept this position. Yani you Qadi al-Quda, imagine how big this position is. Just accept it, man. So he says, they come, and of course Abu Hanifa refused it. And then Ibn Abi Layla actually did say that, look, we know that Abu Hanifa is correct in this. We are the ones who have accepted positions in this government. And he's the one who has, he's the right one who actually rejected every position every time he was offered. So Ibn Hubayra, he said, then if he doesn't want to, then I will torture him if he doesn't accept. And as I said, they did send different scholars to convince him, and obviously they couldn't convince him. Now, then they say, let's leave this man, his position is correct. And then the scholar actually mentions that, don't forget the hadith, speaking the truth in the face of the tyrant is the best jihad. And Abu Hanifa chose this, chose prison, to go to prison, torture, and beaten for days. But he did not accept the life of humiliation. So now he was going to die. So Ibn Hubayra became worried that he might die in jail. So he sends a message back from another back door saying that, tell Abu Hanifa, how about, let me think about, give me some time to think about this position, should I take it or not? So a message reaches Abu Hanifa that the governor is saying that how about you take some time, because they basically came and told him, look, the amount that you have tortured him, this man is going to die in jail. And now Ibn Hubayra, this guy was so worried that if Abu Hanifa dies in jail, he is the Imam of Iraq, and he is the knowledge of Iraq. And if this man is killed or died, remember, all of this was in order to gain some sympathy and legitimacy amongst the people in Iraq. And now this is not working. So he's trying to get him out, and he doesn't want the blood of Abu Hanifa in his hands. Now, if they did have that kind of support in Iraq, he would have killed him, but he knows that this is not going to work. So Abu Hanifa says, fine, give me time. The moment they get him out, he escapes to Mecca. He leaves to Mecca, leaves Iraq, and some of the scholars, they said that he escaped to Mecca. This was 130 after Hijrah, remained in Mecca for 6 years, and until Abbasid Khilafah stated had bought in. Now he used to come back and forth with Bani Umayyah. He was coming back and forth, supposedly many times. He came in and out, in and out, in and out, back and forth between Mecca and Iraq. Now, final time that he did come back to Iraq, when the Khalifa of the time, the new one, the first one of Bani Abbas or Abbasids, he was given bay'ah, and then he comes, and he actually did give a bay'ah. And then, of course, the rebellion started against Bani Abbas also. Now, I'm going fast here because of the time. Abdullah is also, this rebellion is started by the branch of the sons of Hassan radiallahu anh. The sons of Hassan radiallahu anh, they start another rebellion, and this is the children of Abdullah ibn Hassan. And who's Abdullah ibn Hassan? This was one of the teachers of Abu Hanifa. And at the time, Abu Hanifa, his teacher is also in jail. And subhanallah, man, this is something that the ulama of today need to start the sunnah again. They're sitting around in these nice palaces, big organizations. What's wrong with these ulama, man? Wallah al-Azim, when I read this stuff, this is something else, subhanallah. This is why we love our ulama, and today we feel sorry in many ways that we are producing what we are producing. Yani the whole earth and everything in it can be turned upon the heads of the Muslims, and then you ask him, are you seeing? He says, what's happening? Nothing is happening. Everything is okay. Relax. Allah musta'an. The moment Abu Hanifa sees that the Abbasid are also going the wrong way, then this is again becoming father, son, brother. This is the type of, again, the Khilafah is falling apart, becoming in this type of just nepotism type of thing. He says, we're not going to accept this. And then he really very much got himself involved against the rebellion, against even the Abbasids. To the point, as I said, remember, his teacher is in jail, and the sons of his teacher are rebelling against Abbasids. And they are fighting, and the father is in jail, and his two sons were killed while he was in prison. And subhanallah, Abdullah, when he was in jail, both of his sons were killed. Some of the other things that he also gave fatwa, of course, he is Abu Hanifa. He gave fatwa supporting Nafs Zakiyah, asked the people to give him bay'ah. When people asked that they had already given bay'ah to Al-Mansur, he said, how we have already given him bay'ah, how do you expect us to take our hand away from the bay'ah that we have given to Al-Mansur? He said, there is no bay'ah under duress. You cannot give bay'ah under pressure. And this was also, of course, the Hanafi schools, this is also the opinion that you cannot make somebody give divorce. That is not considered divorce. That's another issue, by force. There's no divorce by force. And then this is also, he also says that the bay'ah under duress there's no such thing as giving bay'ah by force. There's another, finally, just a few more things here. Hassan ibn Qahtaba, he's one of the commanders of Bani Abbas, and he comes to, by the way, this was also this rebellion that he asked the people to remove the bay'ah, take the bay'ah away, away from Mansur and give it to Nafs Zakiyah, was also the opinion of Imam Malik. Imam Malik is also supporting the same opinion while he's in Medina. So remember, Imam Malik is in Medina and he's in Kufa, and there's things happening in Mecca. And right? So now Hassan ibn Qahtaba, that's his name, he's the commander of Bani Abbas. He comes to Abu Hanifa asking him, he says that, look, I've been constantly fighting with, with this Mansur. And he says that, look, there's enough blood on my hands. Is there tawbah for a person like me? And now imagine the answer of Abu Hanifa. He says, yes, there is. Number one, that you have to regret. And number two, he says, when you are given a choice again to kill Muslims, or if this is what you're asked to do, then you rather be killed, you have to accept that you be killed, than you kill another Muslim. As a commander, you accept that you be killed rather than that you will kill another Muslim. And then he takes that from Abu Hanifa, and then he goes to see Mansur, and he tells Mansur what he believes. And then Mansur, he says, this is not Hassan. This Hassan, something happened to this Hassan. And he says, so the spies, they come to Mansur and says, he has been meeting with Abu Hanifa. We heard that a lot nowadays, so-and-so is meeting with these type of people, and all of a sudden they're coming and they're rebelling. It's a sunnah, so don't feel bad. So, and he says, so-and-so they're meeting with, and then he said, I will not lead your armies anymore, neither will I kill Muslims. And then, of course, they said this because he's going and meeting Abu Hanifa. Just last two more examples here. In Tariq Baghdadi, or Tariq Baghdad, there was, basically, this is one thing that had happened. There was a woman that was punished. And it was Ibn Abi Layla who had given the fatwa to punish her because she had called these people Ibn Zaniyin. And because of that, this is a very big tuhma. And when you tell somebody who's never committed zina, and you tell them you son of the adulteress, adultery. So Ibn Abi Layla gave a fatwa saying that she should be punished. So what they had done was they had brought that woman, and she was known as someone who was not in her mind. But anyway, they brought her to the masjid and they punished her. And the way they punished her is that they lashed her, and then she was standing while being lashed in the masjid. And then, so there are a few things that had happened. So they asked Abu Hanifa, they said, this is we need you to give fatwa. But he said, look, they had already, because they had told him Abu Hanifa cannot give fatwa anymore. He cannot speak. He was basically told he cannot give talks in the masajid. He cannot give fatwas anymore. They cannot, basically put almost in prison. But then they asked him, he said, this has happened and it's become a talk of the town. What is your opinion regarding what they did to this woman? He said, all of it was wrong. Not only one, they did 6 things that was wrong. And he said, what is the 6 things? He said, number 1, you don't punish anyone. The hudud are not implemented in the masjid. That does not happen in the masjid. Number 2, they punished, for the 2 people that they punished her, those 2 they were not the ones who complained. It was the sons who complained. And it should have been the ones who complained. If they were the ones who she spoke against, who said, Ibn kada kada, to them, they're the ones who should have actually put the complaint, then you could do this punishment. But thirdly, even the punishment that you did, which was they actually punished her for the man and for the woman, and for the father and for the mother. And he said even that was wrong, because you have to wait and make sure that the person recovered and things like this before you put the second punishment on the person. So, and also they punished her in the masjid, not allowed. When they punish, if there is a punishment for a woman, they don't make the woman stand. They have to sit down on their knee in a way where it's decency. Where a woman cannot be put in a position where she's exposed. And at the end he said, after all, she was majnoon. She was actually not even in her mind. The whole thing was wrong. So now, of course, Ibn Abi Layla, he's now the Qadi al-Quda and all kinds of stuff going on against him. And he says, this is enough. And he goes to the Khalifa, he says, look, this guy is going to create hell. And again, he's put in prison. That was basically the last straw for Abu Hanifa. Again, but even then, he was asked again to take a position as far as the Qadi, because of the mistakes that were being made. He says, no, I'm not going to take any position. Again, he's tortured. He's whipped over 104 lashes. And in and out. I mean, literally, he was sent into prison, then he was sent back, then he was sent in, then he was sent back. Constantly back, forth, until he passed away in house arrest, rahimahullah. To the point that there are some weak narrations. There is disagreement whether he was actually poisoned or not. Some do say that he was poisoned, but they say this is weak. Although he did die of the amount of lashes that they were put on him. And that's how Abu Hanifa rahimahullah passed away. And of course, there's a lot about when he passed away, the amount of people that actually came to his janazah. All of that is, inshallah, we have to cover in another discussion, even his life, his times, and all of that. So again, jazakallah khair. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hopefully, that these kind of talks actually not only become guidance for us, and also for many of our ulama who are just keeping their eyes closed and not speaking when they need to be the speaking most. And to the point, one of the greatest things about Abu Hanifa was, he would speak because if the learned of this ummah are not speaking, then the ignorant start speaking. And by Allah, dear brothers and sisters, I actually saw the results of that myself with my eyes in Syria. When the ulama got up and left Syria and went to Turkey, instead of struggling and making sure that there's a change, the real change occurs in Syria, instead of actually being there, supporting, dying, sacrificing with their populations, when the kind of ignorance that did enter Syria, and then the complaints were, oh, look at these people, they're doing this, they're doing that. What else did you expect when the knowledge leaves? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us on the right track, to keep us on haqq, and always be people who will use our tongue to speak against batil and against dhulm. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.